There are cities across the United States where the ambulance might take hours. The police are not coming, and your insurance costs more than your rent. In some places, the government has paid people to evacuate. These are not headlines from failed states. They are the reality behind America's breakdown cities. You may know some names, and others will blindside you. Why are basic services evaporating in places millions still call home? Let us look inside the collapse, starting with the places where survival is no longer guaranteed. Memphis, Tennessee. In neighborhoods like Whitehaven, it is not just the sound of sirens that keeps people up at night, it is the sound of car theft, cars disappearing. Last year, more than 2,500 vehicles were stolen for every 100,000 residents, one of the highest rates in the country. Viral videos showed teenagers learning how to hotwire Hyundais and Kias with nothing but a USB cable. For shopkeepers, it has become a daily calculation. How much risk can you afford before you close up for good? One Memphis grocer started sleeping in his store after his delivery van vanished twice in 6 months. Even as city officials point to a recent drop in homicides, the damage is everywhere. Windows replaced with plywood, insurance premiums climbing, and trust in the system at an all-time low. Birmingham, Alabama. In 2024, violence reached levels not seen since the Great Depression. The city's violent crime rate soared to nearly 6,000 per 100,000 people, 4 times the national average. On a single weekend in July, a drive-by at the A&G Lounge left 4 wounded, and that was just one of several mass shootings that summer. For community organizers, the challenge is not just the shootings, it is the sense of siege that follows. Streetlights flicker out, abandoned houses become gathering spots, and families map out routes to avoid the worst blocks. One organizer described spending her evenings walking kids home from after-school programs, hoping to keep them out of the crossfire. In both cities, the threat is not theoretical. 1 in 17 or 1 in 18 residents will be robbed, assaulted, or worse. For many, the question is not if violence will touch them, it is when. In places where the police are overwhelmed and federal help is a rumor, survival means adapting to a new normal, one where danger is just part of the background noise. In Stockton, California, the city's financial collapse was not just a headline, it was a line item on every spreadsheet. When Stockton declared bankruptcy in 2012, it was not a single bad decision. It was the result of years of promising more than the city could afford. Pensions ballooned during the housing boom, locking in generous packages that the budget could not handle once the market crashed. By 2025, 74% of Stockton's general fund went straight to police and fire, leaving potholes unfilled and libraries shuttered. City Hall itself became a symbol of decay. Water stains on the ceiling, paint peeling from the walls, and doors locked every Friday to save money. A $135 million arena, built with dreams of economic revival, now needs public subsidies just to keep the lights on. One finance expert from Stockton summed it up. "We built monuments to prosperity while the floorboards rotted." Baltimore's numbers tell a different story, but the result is the same. Ambulance dispatchers juggle calls for hours, forced to triage emergencies because there simply are not enough crews. In some neighborhoods, a heart attack means waiting up to 3 hours for help. The dispatcher's screen fills with addresses from blocks lined with abandoned row houses, places where the city cannot afford to board up windows, let alone staff another ambulance. Hospitals have closed in key areas, and the city's shrinking tax base means even basic emergency response has become a luxury. St. Louis, Missouri offers a masterclass in the tax service paradox. Residents pay a combined sales tax of over 11%, among the highest in the country. Yet, when an EF3 tornado tore through the city in May 2025, emergency sirens stayed silent. Months later, debris still littered the streets. The city council chambers echo with debates over unfunded pensions and budget shortfalls while streetlights flicker out and garbage piles up. One council member put it bluntly, "We are taxing people like we are New York, but delivering services that would not pass in a small town. Behind every broken service is a spreadsheet, pensions that cannot be paid, budgets drained by police and fire, and a shrinking pot for everything else." For residents, it is not the numbers that matter. It is the realization that the city they live in cannot afford to keep them safe, healthy, or even informed when disaster strikes. Oakland's downtown streets tell the story in padlocked doors and empty storefronts. Last year, over 14,500 cars vanished from the city, almost 2 every hour. For business owners, it has become a losing battle. In-N-Out, Denny's, and entire strips of restaurants have packed up and left. The numbers are blunt. Property crime here runs nearly double that of similar cities. More than half of residents say they have stopped going out to concerts or events. 61% have cut back on dining out, not because they want to save money, but because they are tired of being targets. One manager at a family-owned bakery described watching the block empty out, each neighbor closing up after one too many break-ins. She said you start every morning wondering if your windows will still be there. The city tried to fill the gaps, more money for police and new community programs. But with 74% of the budget already locked into police and fire, there is little left for anything else. Even the city council cannot agree on a permanent police chief. In the meantime, workers cross their fingers on the walk back to their cars, hoping tonight is not their turn. The financial squeeze is not limited to the West Coast. In New Orleans, the cost of keeping a roof over your head has turned into a monthly gamble. Home insurance premiums jumped from $10,964 to nearly $14,000 in just 1 year. That is more than most mortgages. For renters, the pain is just as sharp. Over 31,000 households spend more than half their income on rent. The average one-bedroom now runs $1,838 a month, and in the French Quarter, it is $2,262. Evictions have displaced 24,000 people since 2021. One tenant in Central City described packing up her apartment after her landlord raised the rent for the 3rd time in a year, the insurance bill tacked on top. She said she works 2 jobs, but it is never enough. For many, the dream of homeownership died before it began. 18% of sales in February were canceled because buyers could not afford insurance. In both cities, the math just does not add up. When the price of safety, shelter, and survival keeps climbing, people do not just cut back, they leave. In Gary, Indiana, entire blocks have surrendered to blight. A third of the city's buildings, 13,000 in total, stand abandoned, their windows shattered and roofs caved in. What used to be schools are now magnets for crime. From 2019 to 2024, police logged over 1,800 emergency calls at just 28 shuttered campuses. One former steelworker, now a night watchman, describes his rounds as a tour through a city-sized graveyard. He says the silence is broken only by the sound of copper pipes being ripped from walls. For families left behind, the sense of safety vanished long before the last factory whistle blew. Flint, Michigan offers a different kind of devastation. In 2014, a cost-cutting switch poisoned the water supply, exposing 100,000 residents to lead. The city's children paid the price. Rates of learning disabilities soared, and entire classrooms shifted to special education. A principal in Flint remembers the day she realized half her incoming kindergartners needed extra help. Not because of poverty, but because their brains had been damaged by something as basic as drinking water. The state promised $656 million in compensation, but most families are still waiting. The checks come in phases, tangled in bureaucracy, while the harm remains permanent. In Jackson, Mississippi, the water crisis is not the result of accident but of policy. Pipes leak half their contents before reaching homes, and boil water advisories have become routine. The state's answer was Senate Bill 2822, a law that made federal aid nearly impossible to access unless the city could match it dollar for dollar. For a place with a $2 billion repair bill, that is a blockade, not a solution. One public works foreman in Jackson describes handing out bottled water to his own crew because the tap is not safe. Human Rights Watch called it deliberate disinvestment by those in power. When laws are written to keep help out, the collapse is not just physical, it is political, and it is personal. Today, millions still navigate cities where broken systems are not accidents. They are policy. As budgets shrink and aid stalls, these breakdowns do not stay local. They ripple outward, reshaping entire regions. The real emergency is not just failing infrastructure. It is the quiet acceptance that this is normal. What would it take to change that?